most people, this miracle is simply not accessible. The Arabs at the time the Qur'an was revealed had been prepared for the Qur'an. There's anybody that looks at this has to marvel at the timing of the Qur'an, because the Qur'an comes at a time when the bulagha, these eloquent masters of Arabic, and the ability, nobody, if you read Jahili poetry, nobody in the history of the Arabic language was more adept at descriptive language, at just perfect language to describe something. So when they described the desert sands, they gave descriptions that you cannot improve on. They had a rhetorical prowess that was unmatched in the history of the Arabic language. In the same way that one could argue that English reached its pinnacle during the time of the Elizabethan period. And nobody has come up with poetry that is the equivalent of Donne or Shakespeare, or a little bit later Milton, his period. But that period of the English language is unparalleled. The next closest thing is probably some of the 19th century writers. But English now has fallen on hard times. I mean, there just aren't very many eloquent writers anymore in English. And what passes for great writing is quite extraordinary. So if you look at English literature, you will see that every great language has a period of time when it just reaches its culminating apex. Persian language is like that, with the great Persian poets who are also around the same time. The Greek language during the period of Homer, and then also later to a certain degree during Plato's period. So the Arabs, this language had reached this pinnacle, and and what's fascinating is almost all of the Jahili poets die right before Islam comes. And then there's nobody to parallel them after Islam. There's great poets, Abu Nuwas and Ibn Burda and Al-Mutanabbi. I mean, there's great poets, but none of them can compare to Imr al-Qais or Labid or Nabigha al-Dhibyani. None of them. So when the Qur'an came down and the Arabs heard it, these were people that were speaking in their normal language, the language that they obtained from their mothers. And all you have to do is read the Arab, the A'rab, the Bedouins who relate hadith. Just anybody who studied Arabic, for you who study Arabic, look at the hadith of Halima Sa'diyah. Look at the way she speaks. Look at the hadith of Aisha bint Abi Bakr. Look at the hadith of Zara'. Look at some of Aisha's khutab. Aisha knew all of the Jahili poetry by rote. Muawiyah once asked one of his boon companions, Nadim, who's the most eloquent person you've ever heard? He said, Wallahi anta ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. You know, you are. And he was very eloquent. And he said, I want you to be honest with me. He said, well, in that case, he said, I've never heard anybody more eloquent than Aisha, the daughter of a Siddiq. And if you look at Aisha's speeches, they're stunning expressions of the Arabic language. These people could do this naturally. There was no takalluf in their speech. They didn't have to sit down and write speeches and work out rhetorical artifices and tropes and figures, to impress people. All of that came later. When they examined their language, they said, oh, this is called antithesis. This is called, tibaq. This is jinas. Here's alliteration. They came later. They were doing this naturally. They didn't need to study rhetoric to learn how to do these things. They got them from their mother tongue. So when these people first heard the Qur'an, they were overwhelmed by it. First of all, they said, this is not the speech. This is not something we've heard before. They had three types of language. They had nathar, which is prose. They had saja', which is almost like what we call today rap. It's not poetry, but it's using a lot of rhyme, and the Arabs liked it in their khutab. The kahinas used to use it. These soothsayers used to do it, and it almost sounds a little bit, subterranean homesick blues. It just sounds a little bit like somebody's just trying a little too hard. But and then the third was shi'r. And then shi'r had what were called abhur, which are the bahar, the meters. And they had, their meters were qualitative, they were of time duration, and the Arabs could do this naturally. And this is why you have Arab poets that could just say a poem without any difficulty, completely spontaneous. Many examples of this. And Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya is very, very capable of doing that. He can say something in meter. It just like people that really master Shakespeare have no difficulty extemporaneously speaking in iambic pentameter, which is a natural form of speech, but it's only one bahar. These people could do many of these meters. So the Arabs, when they heard the Qur'an, they said this is a sahir. And the reason they said he was a magician was because they saw the effect it was having. It was like a magic on people. People were becoming mesmerized by it. Even people that weren't interested. The Quraysh, at one point, they were giving people cotton to put into their ears when they went into the haram, because they did not want people to hear the Qur'an, because they knew they'd get influenced. And some of these people would go in and they just take it out to listen, because curiosity killed the cat. So they would do that, and people became Muslim that way. The وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Amongst the people are those who purchase empty, vain talk. When they used to go listen to the Prophet, one of the Quraysh got some Persian storytellers that used to tell the stories of the Persian kings, to sit on the road to try to distract people, to give them stories about things. So they were very worried about the impact that this was having on them. Even Al-Walid ibn Mughira, who was the father of Khalid, Al-Walid was one of the most eloquent of the Quraysh, and when he heard the Qur'an, he was overwhelmed by it. And he said that this Qur'an is just something very, very captivating. And it was Abu Jahl convinced him, his magic's getting to you. But he almost became Muslim just from hearing the Qur'an. فَاصْدَعْ بِمَا تُؤْمَرْ. When one of the Arabs came into the haram, he heard the Prophet ﷺ reciting some verses, and he went into sajda, and somebody said, did you become Muslim? He said, no, but I was compelled by the eloquence of that language just to do that. So this is the effect that this was having on them. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ generally would do.